Hey guys, what's up? It is Mossy from Pro Gamer Academy. We are back with yet another video covering Worlds 2021. The group stage basically just finished. I waited a couple of days to really get this video out. I kind of wanted to, how'd you put it, like make up my mind, go back and watch some of the games, rewatch them, and basically just create these sort of narratives for teams and kind of be able to tell you guys a little bit about all these teams that are in the quarterfinals, what their path was like, what went down essentially in the group stage. So yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, so if we're gonna hop right in, we may as well start with the first group, the Group A recap. Now, if you guys did not see the ending of this group, the TLDR is that Dom1 went 6-0, top of their group, balled out, and honestly, they just look really scary. I was reading some Reddit thread that says Dom1 is statistically doing better than they were last year when they won Worlds, which is obviously like just terrifying to think about, and you're like, how could this team even be stronger? But realistically, I mean, they are right now. They have all these pieces. Showmaker is performing, I would say, better than ever. Canyon, like, honestly, the team just looks like they're in sync, which is what you would kind of hope to see from them, if you want them to repeat their win. Other than that, Cloud9 was the other team that made it out of out of Group A, and let's just go back and take a look. I will kind of recap how the games went, starting with the first game, which was Dom1 against FPX. This game was a sub 30-minute stomp. FPX looked like they had no clue what was going on. I believe this was the game in which Dom1 pulled out the Yuumi, which we had seen. Actually, now the group stage is over, we've seen it quite a few times. I'm not exactly sure the statistics on how many times it has been picked, but we saw Yuumi quite a lot, which shocked me, to be honest. At the end of the day, I believe Rogue won their first matchup, which was against Cloud9. I didn't really see too much of that game. My understanding is that Cloud9 sort of struggled a little bit, and Rogue just looked a little more put together, which is extremely common if you're an NA fan. You see things like that happen all the time, so it's kind of what you were expecting. But the exciting thing happened, day 2, Dom1 end up basically playing Rogue, which means Cloud9 played FPX, and Dom1, I don't know what it is about them this year. Rogue locked in this Fiddlesticks, which was a little bit weird, but I've seen some of it. It felt like Dom1 was giving up a lot of things here. They gave up the Nami Lucian combo, but it just didn't really matter. It is worthy to note that Ghost struggled a lot this game on Aphelios in the bot lane. But Dom1, whatever, we're better than you. We win. Showmaker's Rise is in our back pocket for the late game. It doesn't really matter too much. Moving on to day 3, Dom1 had to fight C9. At this point, Dom1 were 3-0 and FPX were 2-1. I believe they picked up the win against C9 and Rogue. Yeah, I don't know. This game, C9 was 0-2 at the time. They ended up going 0-3 after this. Ghost plays Jhin. I'm pretty sure Ghost balled out this game on the Jhin and just set up a bunch of kills. Showmaker was playing TF. And I think they lost in 33 minutes. So, just all in all, just a solid game from Dom1. Moving through the rest of the group, honestly, not a whole lot to talk about here. FPX basically imploded on the last day of play while Dom1 didn't. FPX lost 4 straight games in a row. They went from being 2-1 to finishing the group bottom at 2-5. Very, very unfortunate for them. The surprising thing was that Cloud9 was actually able to recover, coming in at 0-3 and ending the group stage at 3-4. So fantastic for them. You love to see it if you're an NA fan like me. They are able to basically have this huge comeback, and they beat Rogue, they beat FPX, and it just doesn't even matter that they lose to Dom1. They win out, and they go all the way through to the quarterfinals. You love to see it as an NA fan. Up next is Group B. If you guys forget the teams in this one, it is T1, Edward Gaming, 100 Thieves, and Detonation Focus Me. Obviously, the LJL representative, if you weren't sure, that one's a little bit of a lesser known name, so I do try to keep it inclusive for you guys. Basically, Group B started with a bang. T1 faced off against DFM. They played Yuumi Jin in the bot lane. Pretty much T1 just balled out this game. I think it was a 19-minute game, which is just ridiculous. We got to see Owner, is it Owner or Winner? I'm not sure. On the Talon, the jungle player for T1, he went like 11-1-6. Just made jungle Talon look terrifying, and rightfully so. Next, Edward Gaming fought 100 Thieves. I think 100 Thieves actually got the Misfortune Yuumi bot lane, but it didn't really pan out for them this game. Scout was on the LeBlanc and just finding pickoffs and making this like impossible, so they lost in under 30 minutes. Moving on to day 2, T1 played Edward Gaming, which, this was like one of the biggest matches, I would say. Edward Gaming were actually able to pull out this win, and this was the only loss that T1 would have throughout like the entirety of the group stage. They ran Ziggs and Shen in the bot lane, which like was holding up pretty well, but the Xin Zhao in the jungle was like 1-6 for T1. So they were just like losing really hard from the solo lanes basically. Moving on though, 100 Thieves played DFM and they won. I think they played Nami Lucian in the bot lane that game, and Closer was actually on his Viego jungle. If you remember the LCS Summer Split, they played Closer on the Viego jungle a lot. He balled out basically, so it was good to see him on some comfort champ. Moving on to day 3, Edward Gaming demolished DFM. The game went as expected. The ADC player for DFM, Udapon, actually had a pretty good performance on the Jhin this game, so that's something to keep in mind. One thing I will say is that DFM didn't really play scared this game, which I can appreciate. It's good when teams from minor regions can still play with some aggression, even though they know that they're outclassed. Finally, T1 fought 100 Thieves, another sub 30-minute match. Closer was on Trundle, he couldn't really do anything. I don't know. There was a Kennen in the top lane. Kana was playing it against the Someday Renekton, and he was such a problem this game. Definitely, one of the strongest points for T1 in that match. Moving on to the final day for Group B, Edward Gaming, I believe, was 3-0, and T1 were 2-1. But basically, Edward Gaming beat DFM, then T1 beat 100 Thieves, then T1 beat Edward Gaming, they got revenge on him in 26 minutes or something, under 26 minutes. And then 100 Thieves had to play a 50-minute match against DFM, but they did win. And then T1 beat DFM again. Basically that's the last game for the LGL representatives. Very unfortunate for them. And then 100 Thieves actually managed to beat Edward Gaming, which put T1 up to first place. So 100 Thieves doesn't get out of the groups. T1 ends with a 5-1 record, and Edward Gaming go 5-2 because they lost to 100 Thieves and to T1. So T1 gets locked in as the first place team, and Edward Gaming is the second place team for Group B. Now to move on to our Group C recap. Group C, I gotta be honest, the teams here, we have RNG, Hanwha Life, PSG Talon, and Fnatic. This was by far and away the messiest group I think I saw, throughout the entirety of the group stage. I don't even really know, I guess some of these teams, it felt like the most evenly matched group, basically. It was just really messy, teams were dropping games everywhere. RNG finished first here, and Hanwha Life got out in second. But I believe that there was a tiebreaker. So day 1, we got to see RNG fight PSG Talon, and PSG Talon almost won this game. Maple was on the mid Tryndamere, and he was insanely strong. But RNG, just better macro, cleaner team. They get Infernal Soul and they close out the game. Moving onwards, Hanwha Life obviously played Fnatic that same day, and Fnatic did not have their star ADC upset at this event. Some drama going on there, but Chovy played Yasuo this game. Fnatic just looked pretty much lost throughout the majority of this group stage, and this was definitely one of those games. Moving on to day 2, PSG Talon took the match against Hanwha Life. This was honestly a really, really good match to go back and watch. Chovy's on Azir, Maple's on the LeBlanc. it was just, I don't know, it was kind of crazy to see. It was, again, like, it was a Jin and Yumi bot lane from PSG, but, you know, I mean, PSG Talon actually takes the match here, and they win, which is just nuts. So, keeping the group interesting. Later on, Fnatic, I believe they played an Olaf top against RNG that same day, but Xiao Hu was on Renekton, or excuse me, Kennen. And Kennen didn't really care about Olaf at all in the top lanes. Like, Olaf just really struggled this game. Hylissang was also on the Pyke support, so they were just like trying to bend the meta here, or like prove that they knew something, and like that RNG didn't. But it didn't really work out for them. Fnatic lose this game as well. Finally, on day 3, we got to see Hanwha Life Esports and RNG fight. Obviously, both these teams were undefeated at this point, so I was like super hyped to see who would come out on top. And this was a 40-minute banger. RNG actually took home the win here. It was Ziggs and Sett in the bot lane for RNG, and then Hanwha Life had Kai'Sa and Leona. And like somehow the Ziggs and Sett like did completely fine. You know, that being said, Deft was on the Kai'Sa, and he got off to a pretty early lead. I think he had like 3 kills coming out of the early game, like 10 minutes. Maybe not 10 minutes, a little bit later, but still kind of crazy. Chovy had a really bad game though. He was like 0-5 at 17 minutes, so he actually just got completely shut down. Anyways, I believe Xiao Hu was on the top lane Lucian this game, and they kind of got him ahead. So they just snowballed their victory with, you know, they snowballed their lead with a couple Mountain Drakes. Next up, Fnatic and PSG Talon gave us a 46-minute match. Gangplank was in the top lane, I believe, for PSG, and they won a huge early game fight. Like, Nisqy was on the mid lane Tryndamere, and he kept Fnatic in this game, but it just kind of ended up not being enough. They eventually got shut down. You know, you hate to see it, but yeah, Hanabi's Gangplank went 8-2-9, so he just balled out on the game basically. Moving into the final day of play for Group C, RNG was 3-0, PSG Talon was 2-1, Hanwha Life was 1-2, and Fnatic was 0-3. So to start the day off, Hanwha Life took a revenge win over PSG Talon with the Chovy Twisted Fate. Then Fnatic were able to actually defeat RNG with a massive comeback win, which just was huge for what it did to the standings. Then RNG beat PSG Talon. Maple is on the LeBlanc, and I think there was a Yumi on him too through the majority of the game. It was rough to watch. Then Hanwha Life beats Fnatic with Chovy going God mode. And then Hanwha Life actually fight RNG. I believe this was the tiebreaker. Or no, maybe that was the next one. But Hanwha Life beats RNG. So RNG loses 2 games. And Hanwha Life puts themselves at 4-3. And PSG Talon beats Fnatic. So, yeah, it ends up with RNG being in first and Hanwha Life being in second, just barely making it out of Group C. Now, we are finally moving on to the last group, which is Group D. If you need a reminder, Gen G, Mad Lions, LNG Esports, and Team Liquid are in this group, in that order, actually, at the end of the group stage. Just to go through, you know, we'll start from the top from day 1. This group started with Gen G fighting LNG Esports. In the first game, they completely stomped LNG. It was a 23-minute game. Rascal was in the top lane with a Renekton. Gen G, you know, they drafted an early game comp. They had a misfortune as well, and they just didn't, like, they closed the game out. They looked clean. Next up, we got to see TL fight Mad Lions. TL were able to actually punish Mad for their scaling comp. They had Jax and Aphelios, and honestly, it was like a quick 27-minute victory, something like that. Santorum was on the Lee Sin, or excuse me, Xin Zhao, making a lot of plays. You know, they turned around basically a massive team fight at 26 minutes and then just won from there. So fantastic win here for TL, and just a wonderful way for them to start out in Group D. Moving onwards to day 2, Mad Lions kind of turned things around for themselves. They had a 46-minute win against Gen G. They drafted like the super mobile comp. They had Wukong, Qiyana, LeBlanc, Lucian, and a Yumi. And they were just like running circles around Gen G in some of these fights. They had a couple errors in execution, but it didn't really matter. There was a BDD Azir, but again, that didn't really matter either. They took a big win here on day 2. And at the same time, LNG actually had this standout performance from you know, their match against Team Liquid. Ale had a fantastic game on the Fiora, so something to keep in mind there. TL just looked outclassed. Moving on to day 3, LNG continued their role with a relatively simple takedown of Mad Lions. Tarzan probably had his best game here, so something to keep in mind. You know, Tarzan kind of had a weak tournament overall, I would say, at this point in time. But Mad Lions had Aphelios and Rise, which, you know, again, they just kind of got exposed for not being able to farm and scale. Gen G beat Team Liquid in the next match. Santorin was put on a Sejuani, and he had to play against a Trundle. It was like, what was going on? Trundle got huge. It was Clid on the Trundle, obviously. BDD was on the Sylas. And honestly, this was probably the least clean win that we've seen from Gen G in this entire tournament up to this point. So, you know, they do get the win against C9, like they get it, or excuse me, against Team Liquid, but it was very difficult for them. Moving on to our final day of play for the final group, Group D. This was the craziest one. It was a 4-way tiebreaker. You know, starting at the day, we had Gen G and LNG at 2-1, and then Mad Lions and Team Liquid at 1-2. So basically what happened was Gen G plays Mad Lions. They beat them. It was like a 40-minute match. Pretty tough, but, you know, they get the win. Then Team Liquid fight LNG Esports, and they win off of the Jensen LeBlanc. Finally, next up, I guess, LNG take down Gen G with the BDZ Azir. You know, playing against it didn't really matter for them. Whatever, they ball out. Moving onwards, Mad Lions actually took the match over Team Liquid, and then Team Liquid beat Gen G, and then Mad defeated LNG, which leads us into a 4-way tiebreaker. Unfortunately, the BDZ Zoe was too powerful for Team Liquid, so they actually get 1-0'd by Gen G, knocks them out, and then Mad Lions completed an insane comeback. This is the best game of the tournament so far against LNG. Make sure you watch that. It's the tiebreaker match. It's a 4-way tiebreaker. Mad Lions and Gen G go through. You know, Gen G and Mad Lions, they had to play each other for seeding, and unfortunately Mad lost, which means Gen G was the first seed and Mad Lions was the second seed. But that is kind of how the group stage ended, you know, in Group D, and honestly, just probably the most exciting group to keep tabs on throughout this entire tournament so far. So many great games. All the teams felt like super evenly matched, like they could take matches off each other. And yeah, if you want to watch any of the group stage VODs, I highly recommend that you do. Obviously, there's the reward in client right now for watching Worlds games. You get free stuff, so make sure that you go ahead and do that, and watch the games from Group D if you have to watch any, because they were super exciting. Finally, guys, just before I let you go, I wanted to talk about the matchups here for the quarterfinals stage. Obviously, you know, we talked about the teams that got seeded through, but they had to draw the matchups. So just so you guys know, RNG will be playing Edward Gaming, Gen G will be playing Cloud9, Team Liquid will be playing Hanwha Life, and Dom1 Gaming will be playing Mad. If you wanted to know the first game, I believe October 22nd, which is a Friday, 8 AM EDT, will be the T1 versus HLE game. Moving onwards, I believe the RNG game is next versus Edward Gaming. That's the 23rd, so the next day. And then the day after that, it is Dom1 Kia versus Mad Lions, 24th, same time. And then finally, Gen G versus Cloud9 will be the final match of the quarterfinals. So again, make sure you guys check that out. And I'm sure these BO5s are going to be super exciting. They're going to be great series. You know, I'm hoping that Cloud9 will go through as an NA fan, but I'm not too optimistic. So we'll just kind of have to see how it works out. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know it was a long-winded video, but, you know, hopefully this helps you get up to speed in the matches. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.